Hey everybody, welcome to Workforce Gaming. I'm Brad, here with Doug.
Hey.
I just wrapped up Dragon Quest III
Mhm.
HD 2D Remake, which is the legitimate name of this game that I actually kind of forgot about until I picked up the box from Best Buy and looked at it and I was like, that is actually what you wrote on the spine of this box.
HD2D cannot mean that much to like that can't mean anything to most people. I mean, I get what that means, you get what that means, but like you'd have to be familiar with like Octopath Traveler and like Life Alive to even understand what
Exactly.
HD2D means. It's just whatever. Yeah.
I just feel like you had to pick one or the other. Pick HD 2D, pick Remake. I don't care which, but pick one or the other.
Yeah.
Anyway, that title is very descriptive for what we're playing, though, which is a
Mhm.
remake done in the HD 2D style. So if you haven't seen this, again, like you said, picture Octopath, picture Live Alive, just very colorful, kind of very just really, really gorgeous backdrops, 2D characters, looks very similar to kind of if you made a really pretty SNES game. That's really what it looks like. They are incredible to look at. This is no exception. And it's just a remake of Dragon Quest 3, very much a kind of shot for shot remake. I never played the original. Not much seems like it's new though.
Sure.
I kind of like these types of remakes where it feels like this is what you thought you were playing in like 1990, where it's like, oh yeah, in my
Interesting.
brain, this is what Dragon Quest 3 was at the time, having not played it. It's kind of like Super Mario RPG. It's like this doesn't look any better than what Super Mario RPG looked like. This doesn't
Oh,
feel any better
sure.
than what it looked like.
Yeah.
This is the best memory I have of that, and it's actually done in that. This is what I feel like this game felt like at the time period, if that
Yes,
makes
I
sense.
I do it. Yeah, I always feel like visuals for remakes should go in that direction rather than being like totally faithful. Is like the try to hit the memory or the feeling of or whatever
Exactly.
instead of the thing. Yeah.
Exactly. So I have very little experience with Dragon Quest, just aside from Dragon Quest 11. That's actually the only one I've
Mhm.
ever played.
Oh, I
So
did not. Yeah.
not a huge nostalgia trip for me, more just a general curiosity of, okay, what is this Final Fantasy adjacent series? Since I absolutely
Yeah.
love Final Fantasy, what is this Final Fantasy adjacent series that I just kind of missed out on? Just I I really didn't get into JRPGs until PS1, and then I just never tried the couple that came after that until 11. So completely new to the series, completely new to this game, knew nothing going into it.
Mhm.
The setup for this is super simple, which
Mhm.
again goes back to that kind of that. I think this was 89, 90, right around the time I was born. Fun enough.
Sure.
Goes back to that kind of feeling of just super straightforward. Your dad left when you were a baby, goes on this crazy quest, never comes back. You turn 16, you're old enough to follow in his footsteps. There's a big giant bad guy who's terrorizing the land. Ready, go. And that's the whole setup.
I mean, is that enough for you with like JRPGs and stuff? Because I know like we always talk when we talk like JRPGs and stuff, you're like, oh, well, I like Xenoblade because it's like this really interesting, gripping story, or there's this unique thing. But if this is just so bare bones, I guess, like, do you still can you still like get into it and like appreciate it?
Very much. And I think it is just kind of that, just an adventure. It's
Mhm.
very much just like you start out like, okay, you need to go get a boat so that you can go around the world. So go help this guy out to get this thing for him to go get your boat. Okay, you have your boat. Now we need to go get the I think it was seven, 6 or 7 orbs to do and get the magic thing. And it's just that kind of stuff. The story is very bare bones. I got into it more so because what I feel like this really does is it does scenes really well. The
Okay, sure.
overall story itself is just kind of a, yep, go get the bad guy. The whole thing is here's the one bad guy, go get him, done. Not much else. But there are really great scenes in this that kind of help you along the way. You'll go into a town and there'll be just really interesting dialogue options happening with, or dialogue happening with this king of this land. You'll go to this other town and there's something weird happening in this town. So it's just these kind of interesting scenes that are kind of all pieced together
Mhm.
that create something that's investing as you're going through. I
Sure. Yeah.
really, really did enjoy it without that really, super strong, huge, big picture narrative other than go defeat the Archfiend. Just because there were so many cool moment to moment scenes.
Mhm.
I will say the last 20% of this is fantastic. That's where things kind of go
Oh,
off,
interesting.
your classic JRPG feeling of like, okay, the last 20% of this game, third act basically, very
Mhm.
cool. There's some kind of twists with the big bad. There's a lot more discovered about where your father, what happened with your father when he was gone. You get a lot more kind of just big picture world events, and that I thought was incredibly strong the last probably
Mhm.
20% of this game.
So how's like the previous? So like, there's a lot of game before that though. Like, how did you like
Again,
overall? I
it's
mean, it's like overall, I like this game. 20% was like the high, but like if the last 20% like was the rest of the game, would you not have felt as high on it? Did it just like end really strong?
well, I think again the rest of it had cool scenes. There's very cool stuff
Yeah.
happening with different parts where you're meeting different things, going to these different places, and the world itself is really interesting. So
Mhm.
it's actually modeled after Earth. So like you
Oh,
go
weird.
to
What do
like
you mean?
I'm gonna mess up all the names, but like there's like a place that's very clearly a play on the name Portugal very early. But it's
Oh,
like
that's cool.
Portugal, like, and then you go to like Romina, and that's Rome, and it's like if you look at like the overall world map, it's very clear that you can see like the continents kind of in a slightly altered and shifted thing. So
Oh, that's
very
kind of
cool
cool.
world to explore. That kept me going because every town, the towns in this too are just amazing to look at. They all have kind of the
Mhm.
same basic like inn, item shop, church, store, but they
Yeah.
look so incredible. There's somewhere you just walk in, there's just these giant, like elaborate fountains in the middle, and some are just, these little villages and trees, and they all have these really, really interesting aesthetics to them that just are so much fun to just walk around in. It goes back to that art style we started with, where it's so much fun just seeing what this looks like, just experiencing how this looks. And again, thinking back to like, okay, if you look at this on, some of the original versions of this, how they've interpreted that to make it into this beautiful thing is just
Mhm.
so compelling. So I think I found enough in this without the story being this really like, oh my
Sure.
gosh, what's happening story to kind of keep boosting me through it and just really, really enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. There's like a lot of JRPG. Like I was just thinking, actually, as you were talking about, thinking of like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, where like the main plot was like, whatever, but there's so many great
Very.
individual scenes in there that like the plot does like what the plot is plot just kind of drives you to more interesting scenes. Is kind of what it sounds
Exactly.
like. Yeah.
Very, very similar to that. Again, just there are scenes that stand out. There are things that happen in this. Um, Kind of halfway through the game, you make a town. Like you just go to this place and like this is a cool place. Like you should drop it. Like a merchant would do great here. And if you have a
Mhm.
merchant in your party, you just leave them there, and then you keep getting like you should
Oh,
go check
weird.
in on them, and you keep going back, and the town builds. So it starts out as one building. You go back an hour or two later, and now it's one building and an item shop because you left your merchant. Oh, okay, you go back 3 hours later, now it's an item shop. There's a big church, and this you constantly see this place expanding, and there's some cool plot points that happen with it too as you go through. But just again, just scenes like that where it does some very cool things for being an older game like this.
Mhm.
But I
What's
think that Rebirth comparison is apt though, because I do feel like plot wise I have that same feeling where it's like, okay, just go get the thing and then to the next thing and get the next thing and get the next thing
yeah.
and maybe you'll get to the big bad at the end. But it's that other stuff that drives you forward.
The one thing I was actually kind of curious about is like the party system of this. I've heard is like really strange because you mentioned like, oh, you just drop off the merchant. It's like who's like you didn't even say like a character name. Like it's like if you have a merchant in your party, you just drop off the merchant guy. So
Yeah,
it's like is there like do you have named party members or are they just guys?
you can name them.
Okay, so no. So these are just guys.
Yes, they are guys. Yeah, I just picked whatever the default names that popped up were. But actually, so okay, so the party system. This is actually one of the most unique things about this game, and I couldn't tell you how I feel about it because I just kind of
Yeah,
was like, I played around with it a little bit early and was like, I feel like there's probably a way to really, really dig into this,
yeah.
and I just didn't want to be bothered. It's like a really negative way to say like it
No,
wasn't
I get
interesting to
it.
me.
Yeah,
It's interesting in the uniqueness. I didn't find it compelling in terms of what I was doing
sure.
gameplay wise. So basically, you just pick a class. So you pick like merchant, martial artist,
Mhm.
mage, whatever you happen to pick, and you get those characters at the beginning, about 10 minutes into the game. You
Oh,
go to the
okay,
king. He's
weird.
like, "Oh,
Okay.
it's your 16th birthday. Go follow in your father's footsteps. You're 16. Go follow in your father's footsteps. On your way out of town, stop at this place and grab some people to go with you." And you
Yeah.
literally just like walk to the building next door and like, "I would like this guy, and this guy, please." And they're like, "Oh, yep, here you go. Have fun. Enjoy your adventure." Now, what you can do is at any point in the game, you can go back to that building and pick a new party member. So I feel like, oh man, like I
Okay.
don't have somebody who's got a lot of magic. Okay, well, I'll just go back and you can drop off one of your current party members and basically just create a new person at level 1 of
Oh,
whatever
weird.
class you want to have. So in theory, you could have 40 party members on this if you wanted to, of just different classes, different levels. Every time you do though, it started at level 1, which felt like I was handicapping myself after I'd
Yeah.
played for about 5 or 6 hours, where it's like, okay, all my party members are, level 10, level 12, and I'm just going to tag in a couple level 1 guy. It just felt like I was going to handicap myself, so I didn't really try too much with that. But like I said, with that merchant town, you go to the merchant town, it's like, oh, it'd be really cool to have a merchant here. Okay,
Yeah.
well, I'll go back to that building, recruit a merchant, take him over
It's
there,
like
drop
level
him
one
off,
guy
and
and
be
just
like,
drop him off.
yeah.
That's
Which
funny.
it doesn't actually play. The story doesn't ever really mention that, but it's like, oh yeah, like this brand new merchant just comes to this brand new place, and like they slowly build up this town together. And the way that plot works in my brain, like you kind of fill in some of those details. You're like, oh yeah, like
Yeah.
this goes some directions. Probably because I didn't have an experienced merchant, I just had this a random guy who's like, I'm a merchant. All right, there you go, bud.
Sure. That's kind of fun. I
But
do think like
it,
filling in the gaps is like a really interesting part of older games that like newer games don't have. It's like you have
yeah,
like you kind of there oh gosh, there's some series I forgot that has just like a bazillion party members and they only have names and a picture and like nothing else. And they said like we just want you to build the story in your head of what these characters are. It kind of
that's
seems
kind of
like
cool.
these older games kind of have that as well.
It's kind of the opposite of like 16's like press the touchpad and we will give you every second of background
Ouch.
information on everything,
Yeah.
and it's the complete
Yeah.
opposite end of that. The other part with the party system, and this part I actually did think was very cool, is once you hit level 20 and you find the spot, you can change any character to any class,
Okay.
and you can basically reclass them, and it cuts half your stats and puts them at level 1. By that
Yeah.
point, you're far enough along in the game that within 20 minutes of grinding, you can get them back up to pretty close to where you're at because you're far enough along in the game. And you're fighting such powerful enemies, so
Mhm.
you can kind of take like somebody, okay, this guy's level 20 in my party. I cut him down to level 1, but he's a really, really strong level 1 guy now because he has half the stats of a level 20 character. And then you
Oh,
keep
gotcha.
gaining stat boosts. I thought that was really interesting, just a way to kind of reclass characters and really kind of buff your party up a lot. And again, you get each class has their own skills, so you retain all the skills, half the stats. So you can kind of
Oh,
make
that's
these like
cool.
monster guys who are like, okay, he has like all the, you know, attacks of a martial artist, but the magic of this as you go through.
Mhm.
So kind of a cool way to kind of group some classes together. I thought that part of the party system was cool. I did that as I went through. That felt more natural than just going back and being like, okay, halfway through my adventure, yeah, I guess I'll get a whatever now. I'll add him into
Sure.
my party.
That's pretty cool. I mean, that's neat though. I mean, like, do like these characters though, like, are they? It seems like they're all like very like they're purely mechanical, correct? Like, they don't really
Yeah,
serve. Okay, they don't like serve in the plot. I'd imagine then. Like, it's just like you have a party, and that may be part of the plot, but not no specific character within that party.
your character, the hero, has a lot to do in the story, but the three people that are coming along with you have nothing. They
Gotcha. Okay.
occasionally will make a comment if something happens. I mean, by occasionally, I mean maybe 20 times throughout the entire game, we'll have a line of dialogue here or there, but it's mostly your hero did this, your hero did this, we need this hero to do this, the hero
Gotcha.
did this, your father did this, so you need to do that. So it's a lot of just kind of the one main guy
Mhm.
and some other guys. Kind of
Gotcha.
almost, again, I'm just going to keep referencing Final Fantasy 16 because the box is sitting in front of me, where it's like, this is Clive's story, and the other people are just kind of tagging along with Clive. Like, yeah, they're kind of
Sure.
interesting. They kind of do some stuff, but really, like, Clive is the hero. This is very
Yeah.
much the hero is the hero, and the other people are just here to be here.
Gotcha. Yeah.
The one thing I haven't talked about yet is combat.
Sure. Yeah,
This
I guess so.
It is very much your old school turn-based game. Pick your thing, go. Nothing else fancy there. Just pick out of your menu. No modernization at all, which again I think is cool, just because again it gets back to that feeling of what this game felt like at the time.
Hmm.
We're not going to try and add in some weird new system or anything. It's just it is what it is. This is a old school JRPG. Play it now. With that comes grinding.
God,
I do not like
yeah.
grinding. There is, and this game is hard as fuck. I'm just going to throw that out there. I will. It is time for me to admit that I finished this game on the easy mode that won't let you die. You've got three
Sure.
difficulty options, which is your normal, just like standard, the easy mode, which basically plays the same as normal, but you can't go below 1 HP.
Oh, okay,
And
sure. How
so,
far
like,
along did you go before you pulled that trigger?
there was one boss about 10 hours in that I switched it to because
Yeah.
I went and grinded for like an hour. And then I came
Yeah.
back and I still got my ass kicked. I was like, I can't. I'm done. After an hour of grinding, I'm sorry. That's all I got for you, game.
Sure.
Stopped it
Yeah.
back down, went back up, and then Um, if you played the game, it's when you get all the orbs. Something happens there, and there's a boss right around there that I was like, I just can't do this. So it's probably
Yeah.
about 60 to 70% of the way through. I was like, nope, we
Okay.
flipping it to easy. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. No, that's
that
fair.
that last act I talked about that had all the really good story stuff. I was more of like, I don't want to go grind for 2 hours.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I did pull up a guide, and it was like one of those things where it's just like, okay, if you're at this level, well, I'm 3 levels behind that, so that's probably a half hour of grinding. Okay, I get it. So, well, but then you also really should have these 7 pieces of equipment equipped, and if you don't have this specific job in your party, then that's going to make it a little bit more. So it's just one of those where like, no,
Yeah.
sorry, easy mode.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's fun. It's really, really good. Just classic turn-based combat. If you like that sort of thing, there's nothing modern about it. It's just is
Mhm.
what it is, and I enjoyed it for that. Even even while I was playing on easy, I'd flip it down to like, or flip it back up to medium just to do like some of the field battles and things, just because I
Yeah.
was enjoying the combat. And it's like, okay, boss time. Bloop, back to easy. Okay. That
Yeah.
super evil monster was substantially easier than that little wolf that attacked me.
I mean, there's something to be said for that because I definitely I like to play games on harder difficulties, but like sometimes the momentum really gets killed in the final act when like you have a lot of hard boss battles, but
Exactly.
like the story's moving really fast. But you're like, nah, I gotta fight this one boss like 2 or 3 times, the first thing, and then I get to the next one. But it's like totally kills the momentum of the game if you play on hard. So
Exactly.
I imagine that like that's actually probably felt like pretty satisfying though if you could just like fly through it. To be totally honest, because that's usually when
Yeah.
story starts picking up. Yeah.
I do think that helped a lot. Where it's just like, okay, like I'm really enjoying this because I'm getting story, 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 and I'm not
Yeah.
okay. Like let's go grind, let's go do this, let's go do that, let's go find the one piece of fire resistant armor in that one cave that I went into, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think it's just a different mentality of person. Like I came in at like PS1, PS2 JRPGs, which a lot
Yeah.
of that was slowly working its way out. And if you went back to this time period, it's like, okay, nope, that was just a major piece of JRPGs, and it doesn't have like the pixel remasters all have like, okay, like you can just bump the slider up to ×3 experience every battle.
Sure.
Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
we
That's
know
fair.
we know you would have had to grind for 2 hours, so just pop that up there, go do a couple extra battles, and then you can get all the XP you need, and you're right where you want to be. So
Mhm.
it is what it is, but it's fun combat, it's good combat. But I was playing the final couple bosses, and I was just like, I don't even know how you would do this. Like this boss is doing in one turn like all of my health to 3 of my 4 characters. He would have killed everybody in 2 turns. I don't even know what I would have done. So
Yeah.
maybe I'm just bad at old JRPGs, but it is what it is. But
Mhm.
I absolutely love this game. I love the look of these games. I want more of these. I want Final Fantasy VI. I want Chrono Trigger. I'm very excited for Dragon Quest 1 and 2 next year.
Sure. Yeah.
It's such a cool way to do these games. It takes something that I think if you went, and you can actually buy the original Dragon Quest 3 on Switch. And I think if you went and
Oh, I
tried
didn't
to
know
play
that.
that versus trying to play this, because I almost did when this was announced. I was like, I never played that. Maybe I'll try it because they go on sale for like $3. And I was like, I don't think I have it in me to play that
Yeah.
with no modernization to it. This has just enough to make it accessible. I'm sure if you
Yeah.
played the original, there's quality of life, there's all that sort of thing going on here that makes it just a step up. But just, it is an incredible game. It is a great JRPG. It is a game that, when you look at kind of the history of this, I feel like, okay, this one should stand out in the history of JRPGs and the history of the
Mhm.
genre as being one of the ones that kind of push this forward, just because of just the way that it handles scenes, the way that it handles some of the things going on. It tries unique things. It holds up so well. Absolutely stellar game that if you have any interest in JRPGs, you should go try.
It's on my wish list.
But we are Workforce Gaming. Subscribe to our channel, leave a comment below. There's links to Sports and Coffee as well. We'll see you later.
Bye.